Hello and welcome to the Friday Football Show. I'm Alan Saunders, Pittsburgh Sports Live. Thanks for watching. We're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers as they head to Baltimore to take on divisional rival the Ravens this week. Pitt Panthers have perhaps the most important game of their season at Virginia tonight. And of course, it's the first night of WPIAL High School football. So we've got a lot to talk about. Thanks for joining me, as always, every Friday throughout football season here at Pittsburgh Sports Live. I'm going to dig right in and what I do every week at the beginning of the show, talk about what went right and what went wrong from last week. And it was a pretty good week in the Pittsburgh football sphere as the Steelers and the Panthers both took home important divisional victories. Steelers beating the Browns at Heinz Field and Pitt taking care of Duke on Saturday at Heinz Field. And we'll start there. I thought that was a game that Pitt should win and especially needed to win if they felt like they had any sort of realistic shot at taking care of the goals that they talked about before the season, making a bowl game, perhaps even playing for that ACC championship. And it's all still on the table this week, but it doesn't get any easier for Pitt going forward. We'll talk about that probably next as they've got another sort of must-win, quote-unquote, game. I mean, if they want to continue on the path where they control their own destiny, they need to win again tonight at Virginia. We'll get there in just a minute. And for the Steelers, the same sort of thing. I think that the win over Cleveland was a fantastic way to reset all of the early season struggles that they had and turn the page. You know, you look at that sort of first part of the season as a whole, maybe not as consistently as they want to play on offense. Certainly the defense is what a lot of people thought it would be and not going to be the strength of the team. But certainly they put themselves in the driver's seat in the division after having a fantastic off week where a bunch of people lost and then take care of business against Cleveland. So that's what I thought was going to happen. That's what did happen. Let's turn the page to this week. And I'm going to start with Pitt because this is a fascinating matchup. Pitt, Virginia for first place. Who had that? Virginia kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of people, myself included. They were picked last in the ACC media poll in the Coastal Division, and I don't think anybody thought the media had it way wrong. I mean, maybe some Virginia fans, but this is not a team that has had a lot of success over the years, but it is a team that's playing really well. They play great defense. The one thing I think that has really helped them was when Bronco Mendenhall came in a few years ago. They put in a 3-4 defense. It's not a common look in college football, but I think in the ACC, with the way almost every team we talk about that Pitt faces, whether it's Syracuse or North Carolina or Duke, they all play this spread offense, and just more linebackers on the field is better than more defensive linemen when it comes to defending that kind of thing. To be honest, I think it's something that Pitt should look at doing in the future. It's really working well for Virginia. You look at the stats, their defense is up there, and they're getting healthier. They're going to get their middle linebacker back this week. At least that's what Mendenhall said on Wednesday's conference call. And before I talk about the game, I kind of wanted to talk about where these two programs are because, you know, I don't think anybody thought that Virginia was going to be an ACC championship contender this year. I certainly, after Pat Narduzzi said it at the beginning of the year, I don't think many people believed that Pitt would be an ACC championship contender, and yet here we are, 3/4 of the way through the season, and they certainly are that. But I wanted to kind of compare the two, and I made this graphic here. Let's get that out of the way for you. So when you look at Bronco Mendenhall was hired after the 2015 season. Pat Narduzzi was hired after the 2014 season. And as you can see, Mendenhall clearly came into a worse situation. Over the previous 3 years, they were 4-8, 5-7, 2-10, a total of 6 wins in ACC play, including an 0-8 year in ACC play in 2013. Narduzzi, they had been 6-7, 7-6. And about the same in conference play, 4-4, 3-5, about 500. And so Mendenhall took over was clearly a worse situation and didn't have the same kind of initial success that Narduzzi did. 2-10 in 2016, a 1-7 year, but was better than Pitt last season. And if they win this game, better than Pitt this season. So, I mean, what does that say about Bronco Mendenhall? I mean, I think people thought that was a good hire. I'm not sure that people believed that he could turn things around to the extent that he has at Virginia, not a place that's had a lot of historical football success, mostly known as a basketball school. So I think he's clearly exceeded expectations. And what does it say about the job Pat Narduzzi's done? A place where people did think he could turn Pitt back into a program that contends year in and year out. And he's done okay his first 2 seasons, took a step back last year. I think this season's story is very much yet to be told. You look at these last 4 games for Pitt, 3 of them are on the road. They haven't had a road win yet. At least one of them is going to come against a ranked opponent this week. They haven't beaten a ranked team yet. It's really hard to say right now how well Pitt has rebuilt, how well Pat Narduzzi has built this program. And I certainly think there are a lot of positives there. I said last week that the Pitt fan base is extremely quick to negativity, and I don't necessarily buy into a lot of that, but there's still certainly a lot that's left to be learned about this Pitt team and how this season is going to be looked back upon. If they win 3 of these next 4 games and go to the ACC championship game, I don't think a lot of people are going to focus on losing by 50 to UCF. On the other hand, if they go 1-3 and don't win a game on the road, I think those serious questions that people brought up about this program after that slow start are going to carry into this offseason, and specifically questions about how wise it was for Heather Light to give him a 7-year contract extension after 5 and 7 season. That's definitely going to get brought up. And so I think we're sort of at a crossroads for Pitt. I think it's clear this is a good year for Virginia. And just real quick, when you go back to this graphic, the one thing that stands out to me, both teams 1 loss in conference. Pitt 4-4 overall, Virginia 6-2 overall, because Virginia played nobody in their non-conference schedule. They beat an FCS team. They played Indiana, which was a loss. Not exactly the same thing as playing UCF, Notre Dame, and Penn State. But that, I don't think Pitt gets credit for that in their perception of their program, that they went out and played really, really good teams, probably the most challenging non-conference schedule in the country. And I think the perception around Pitt would be a little bit differently if Pitt had played a MAC school and Indiana and, whatever, Oregon State or some other bottom-of-the-barrel Power 5 team instead of playing UCF, Penn State, and Notre Dame. But tell me what you think. Where are Virginia and Pitt in their rebuilds under their relatively new head coaches? Are the Cavaliers ahead of the Panthers? The Panthers ahead of the Cavaliers? Does this Virginia run surprise you? Let me know. Pittsburgh Sports Live YouTube page, which is where you're watching this probably. And while you're there, push that subscribe button while you're at it. It really helps us out in everything that we're trying to do. Let's talk about the game real quick. I mentioned briefly that 3-4 defense that has done so well for Virginia. The thing to me that stands out about it over the last couple of years as I've broken down those 2 games is how well they've stopped the jet sweep game for Pitt. And 2 years ago was, Matt Canada's first season as Pitt's only season as Pitt's offensive coordinator. But the offense was new then, and that jet sweep had dominated people up until that Virginia game. And the Cavaliers, they shut it down. Now, Pitt still ran all over them with James Conner and running straight up the middle, essentially, with that inside zone was a really successful play for them. But I think you have to temper the expectations for a guy like Malik Carter, who had such an incredible debut last week against Duke. Virginia's going to be able to shut down those jet sweeps. As talented as he was a week ago running on the outside through traffic and everything, it's different against a 3-4 defense. Those linebackers are in space, and they're able to diagnose a play. Even if you assign a blocker to him, it's not the same as a defensive end who's on the line. That tackle, he can't get away from him as a defensive lineman. He's within arm's reach from the start of the play. An outside linebacker has time to diagnose the play and see what's going on, and they'll be able to shut down that jet sweep game if they want to. The question is, I think this is Pitt's best running game they've had since I've been covering the team. Between Ollison and Hall, they have 2 big, strong, powerful backs. The offensive line power blocks better than they have at any point in my memory. And I think that combination means that there's going to be a price to pay for taking away those explosive plays on the outside. But that's a slower road to get down the field. And if Pitt's defense is giving up a touchdown every time they're on the field, it's going to be tough for Pitt's offense to keep pace if they have to sustain long drives with the inside handoff. I mean, yes, they can have explosive runs up the middle, and they have, but more often than not, you're looking at, even if you're having a lot of success, 10, 15-yard chunks, not 62 around the left side like they had with Carter at times. And, of course, you know, I think that the way that game ended against Duke with the passing game sort of coming alive in that 2-minute drill under Kenny Pickett certainly should have that unit feeling a little bit better about themselves, but it still has to be considered a question mark considering how much they've struggled to this point in the season. If Pitt needs to rely on the passing game for more than one drive, do they have it in them? I don't think we know the answer to that question yet. I think this is a really tough matchup for Pitt. I think people are taking Virginia a bit lightly because of the way that program has been perceived over the years. This is a talented team. It's a talented defense that is sort of uniquely situated to take away the one thing that Pitt had so much success with a week ago. So I think it's going to be a tough trip for Pitt. They're 7.5-point underdogs. I'm not sure that I'm saying don't bet on them, but I'm saying I think it's going to be a tough game, and I would not be surprised at all if the Cavaliers pull out a win at home, especially, you know, Friday night under the lights, talking with some people around that program, talking with Pitt offensive line coach Dave Borbely, who coached at Virginia. This is an important game for that program, maybe the most important home game they've had in recent memory. So should be a big, loud, impactful crowd tonight. And you never know how that's going to play into it when you're dealing with college athletics. You know, sometimes a team can just take that momentum, that emotion, and ride that wave to a place that they haven't gotten to before. And I certainly think it's going to be a tough game for Pitt down at Virginia. I'll be covering the game. Of course, we recorded this previously, so as you're watching this, I'm on my way to Charlottesville. I'll be covering the game for Pittsburgh Sports Now. Let's talk pro football, Steelers, Ravens. I think, you know, maybe sort of just like the way that Pitt fans are sort of looking past Virginia or underestimating Virginia a bit because of the way they've played the last few years. I don't think Steelers fans are giving the Baltimore Ravens enough credit. Yes, the Steelers didn't play that well when the Ravens beat them earlier this season, but the Ravens are legit, especially on defense. You look at the numbers, 293.8 yards per game against number one in the National Football League, 137 total points against, second in the AFC. This is a really good defense. And the Steelers' offense struggled against Cleveland. They had some back and forth games early in the year. They seem to have hit a stride over their last few games. This will be the real test to see if the Steelers' offense has moved beyond, you know, figuring out what happens in the absence of Le'Veon Bell and you know, some transition on the offensive line. They've been dealing with some injuries. If the Steelers' offense is one of the best in the league, which is what everybody thought they could be before this season, then they should be able to come out and score 25 to 30 points against the Ravens and win this game. That's going to be hard to do. And so I think maybe more so than, the standings matter. Obviously, it's a divisional game. It's an important one. You know, you look at the AFC North, you know, both of those teams are right there. Steelers 4-2-1, Ravens 4-4. Certainly, Ravens probably kind of feel like they need this win to get back in that divisional race. But I think more importantly, look, if this Steelers team thinks that it's a Super Bowl contender because of its offense and how good its offense can be, then they have to go out and execute against a good defense. Because the Steelers' defense is not good. I mean, it's not bad, it's not terrible, but it's not a unit that can lead a team deep into the postseason. I don't think it's so bad that it's going to prevent them from having a deep postseason run. But this Steelers team is going to go as far as its offense can take them. And this week, its offense is up against one of the top defenses in the National Football League. They've got to do better than they did last time. You know, the Steelers played the Ravens on September 30th and scored 14 points. They lost 26-14. 14 points in today's NFL is not enough. It's not enough for an average offense to win most games. Certainly not enough for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. They have to do better if this offense is going to carry the Steelers forward. And defensively, you know, the Ravens are not a team that should scare anybody. I think I said before the first Ravens game that they don't have the pieces that look like they should be the team to take advantage of the Steelers' defense. And, obviously the Steelers' defense played a little bit better in recent weeks. Give up 18 to Cleveland, 21 to the Bengals, 17 to the Falcons. Those are better numbers than they had. So I think this is a matchup where, again, if the Steelers are who they want to be, then they'll win this game, and they'll win it fairly easily. And if they're not quite where they should be or they think they should be, then this is going to be a tough game for them. 3-point underdogs on the road. I'm actually a bit surprised by that. I think this is more of a coin flip kind of game. If anything, I think the Steelers should feel like they have a bit of an edge going into Baltimore, despite what happened earlier in the season at Heinz Field. But again, if they lose this game, it's not crippling to their record. It's not crippling to their chances of winning the division. They'll still have a lead. They still have many tiebreaker type wins. It's not necessary for any of that. My read is that it's necessary because this is a really good defense, and if you can't beat a really good defense with your supposedly really good offense, then maybe it's not the kind of strength that is going to carry this team to the postseason that the Steelers think it is, and that most people in this town seem to think it is. So I will be intently watching that Sunday afternoon after taking my Saturday off and driving back from Virginia. A bit of a weird weekend for me. The last thing we always do every week on the show, we talk about the coverage. Tonight, double barrel high school coverage for Steve Brenner. He'll be at North Catholic hosting Quaker Valley. Parker Hurley has Greensburg-Salem at South Fayette. Super proud of our high school coverage all year for Pittsburgh Sports Now. It's been... I really was actually looking through the other day the number of the top players that we've seen, and we've got most of them. And a couple here, Nikai Hill-Green, who's the 2020 linebacker, 4-star kid for North Catholic. Steve has been waiting to get a look at. I'll have the coverage tonight also from Charlottesville, Virginia, and then Steelers-Ravens Sunday, 1 o'clock. That's it for this week. Go another week until... We'll be back here in the Beaver County Auto Studios. Really appreciate everything they do for us and for our entire channel to make all of this possible. Check them out if you're in the market for a vehicle out in Beaver County. Great partners for us. And again, like I said, hit that subscribe button if you can. And, check us out on Twitter at PGH Sports Live, where you'll see this show, Dan Kingerski's shows, Mike Asty's shows, all of the other content from our partners at Pittsburgh Soccer Now. Just a great repository for all of our video coverage. So that's it for this week. And until next Friday, thanks for watching. I'm Alan Saunders for Pittsburgh Sports Live. It's been the Friday Football Show.